Hello, thank you for joining us today to watch this year's online presentation for the Sacramento Valley Water Quality Coalition. By watching this short video, you will fulfill your annual outreach requirement as a member of the coalition. We are going to be covering a variety of topics today. First, we'll review what the Irrigated Lands Regulatory Program is and the framework of the coalition. We'll share some fantastic news regarding the Upper Feather River subwatershed. We will review surface water monitoring results from the past monitoring year, during which we will focus on pyrethroid pesticides. And of course, we will review member requirements for the coming years so that you have all the information you need on how to remain compliant with all regulatory requirements. Now, throughout the presentation, several links to separate web pages will be mentioned, and these links will be clickable in the PowerPoint presentation and also available below in the video description. With the stated goal of protecting water quality, state and regional water quality control boards issue waste discharge requirements, or WDRs. The WDR that regulates commercial irrigated agriculture in the state is known as the Irrigated Lands Regulatory Program, or ILRP. 2024 will mark the 21st year since the ILRP was first adopted. Now, as a side note, there are also other WDRs separate from the ILRP that regulate confined animal facilities, stormwater, food processors, and wastewater treatment plants. Management of the ILRP in the state is divided up into regions. The Sac Valley Coalition is in Region 5, which is managed by the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board. In the Central Valley region, there are 14 coalitions and 9 WDRs. These cover 7 million acres, or about 75% of California's irrigated land. You may be familiar with the California Rice Commission, which is one of the Central Valley coalitions. It is the only crop-specific coalition, while all other commercial irrigated crops require separate regulatory coverage by either joining a coalition or obtaining coverage as an individual. Property needs to be enrolled in the ILRP if it is commercial and irrigated and is not already covered under a separate WDR, such as the dairy program or the rice program. To get coverage, you have two options. You can obtain coverage as an individual or join a coalition. If you choose to obtain coverage as an individual, you are agreeing to bear the full cost and responsibility for compliance, monitoring, and report directly to the Regional Water Board. This is often much more expensive, so most growers choose to join a coalition. So in 2004, the Sacramento Valley Water Quality Coalition was created to help growers in the Sacramento Valley comply with the WDR. The coalition has over 1.1 million irrigated acres and 7,300 members. It is managed by the Northern California Water Association, who is the recognized party responsible for compliance in the eyes of the regional board. The coalition is administered locally by 11 subwatershed groups. The coalition helps members with compliance, reporting, coordinating surface and groundwater quality monitoring, compiling reports required by the WDR, and, most important to most growers, offers anonymity in the reporting of on-farm practices. The coalition footprint used to include the Upper Feather River subwatershed, and on that front, we have some really wonderful news to share. On February 23, 2023, the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board unanimously approved an exemption for the Upper Feather River subwatershed. This means that growers in the Upper Feather River watershed are no longer required to participate, financially or otherwise, in the ILRP. This exemption is identical to the exemption approved for the Goose Lake region last year. The exemption was approved on the determination that irrigated pasture, alfalfa, and grass hay operations demonstrate, through documentation of practices and surface water quality monitoring results, little to no risk of impairment of surface and groundwater quality. This achievement could not have been possible without the work of many, including Dr. Ken Tate, Dr. Tina Saitone, Tracy Shore, Carol Dobus, David Lyle, and the owners and operators in these areas, as well as the commitment of the regional board staff and regional board members. This exemption sets the table for consideration of similar decisions in the Pitt River and other irrigated pasture operations. We're now going to shift gears and talk about surface water monitoring. It is true that at one point, while the ILRP was first being developed, the regional board was considering edge-of-field monitoring for each operation. Instead, they approved representative monitoring for coalition members. This is one of the biggest advantages of being a coalition member. The coalition collects water quality and sediment samples on a 3-year cycle of assessment core. Sampling during core years is less costly than sampling during assessment years. In core years, only follow-up sampling for a single exceedance and management plan sampling take place. 2024 will be a core year, and minimal monitoring will take place in subwatersheds with the reduced monitoring option. The next assessment year will be during the 2025 monitoring year. Sampling is coordinated by Larry Walker Associates, or LWA. The monitoring plan is based on 2 primary criteria: the ILRP Pesticide Evaluation Protocol, known as the PEP, and water quality issues identified from prior monitoring. The PEP considers specific registered pesticides based on their application rate in a specific drainage. Each pesticide is assigned a relative risk score based on its toxicity to humans or aquatic organisms. In January of 2018, the coalition was required to begin monitoring for pyrethroid pesticides based on the PEP. In October 2020, any exceedances observed for pyrethroid pesticides counted toward the triggering of a management plan. The past monitoring year, the 2022 to 2023 monitoring year, was a core monitoring year. One management plan in the BYS subwatershed was completed in March 2023, and some good news, no new management plans were triggered. There was an exceedance of the nitrate plus nitrite water quality objective in the Grand Island Drain in the Sacramento Amador subwatershed, but thanks to the work of subwatershed staff and Larry Walker Associates, the issue was not counted as an exceedance because it was caused by an unenrolled grower. This table shows an overview of the results from the past monitoring year. As you can see, once again, overall exceedance rates are at 0% for most analytes, except for pyrethroids, which saw a 30% exceedance rate. Pyrethroid exceedances only occurred in the BYS subwatershed. The 2023 monitoring year brings overall exceedance rates for pyrethroids in the valley floor, evaluated from January 2018 to September 2023, to levels greater than 10% in some subwatersheds, especially in the BYS subwatershed. Exceedances at the Pine Creek representative site in the BYS subwatershed are at 50%. The 6 pyrethroid pesticides that are monitored for can be seen on the right. They are cypermethrin, lambda-cyhalothrin, bifenthrin, S-phenvalerate, permethrin, and cyfluthrin. So, why do we care so much about pyrethroid pesticides? Pyrethroids are highly toxic at low concentrations to invertebrates eaten by waterfowl and fish. ILRP trigger limits are very low. Pyrethroids have both chronic and acute ILRP trigger limits that are compared to the same unitless value of 1. However, the calculations used to some pyrethroid concentrations differ for chronic and acute evaluations. But both chronic and acute evaluations consider any combination of the 6 monitored pyrethroids. In terms of toxicity, some pyrethroids are more toxic than others, with bifenthrin being the most toxic and permethrin being the least toxic. But despite this toxicity rating, growers should be extremely cautious when applying any pyrethroid pesticide. Pyrethroids bind tightly to organic matter and soil particles. So, among other BMPs, growers should pay special attention to reducing drift and sediment runoff. A stewardship approach is the best approach. For more information on pyrethroids and BMPs, please refer to the resource links at the bottom. They can also be found in the video description. The 2023 monitoring year ended in September 2023. As of that month, the Coalition has 4 active management plans. 3 of the 4 are for pyrethroid pesticides in the BYS subwatershed. 1 management plan exists in the Dixon-Solano subwatershed. Now, as a reminder, a management plan is triggered when there are 2 or more exceedances of the same constituent at the same site within a 3-year period. They can only be completed through a combination of monitoring results, management practices documentation, and outreach and education efforts after a minimum of 3 years have passed without an additional exceedance. The earliest completion date for Hyalella toxicity and pyrethroids in the Dixon-Solano subwatershed is August 2025. BYS monitoring sites continue to show exceedances, so the earliest completion date keeps getting pushed back with every new pyrethroid exceedance. So, to wrap up surface water monitoring, this is the main takeaway. Exercise extreme caution when applying all pesticides, but especially pyrethroid pesticides. We're now going to move on to speak about requirements that Coalition members should keep in mind in the coming year. These will be especially important to remember as we head into the 2024 reporting season. Reporting requirements are quite similar to requirements of previous years. First up is the Irrigation and Nitrogen Management Plan worksheet, which must be completed each year by March 1st. The worksheet stays on farm and is not turned into the Coalition. If your property is in an area that is high vulnerability for nitrogen, or if you have a field that has been determined to be an outlier, you will be required to certify your worksheet. We'll talk about certification options in a few minutes. Now, although it is not necessarily being tracked at the Coalition level, apart from being required by the WDR, if your property is selected for an on-farm inspection by the regional board, you will be required to produce this document for at least the 3 to 5 previous crop years. Next up is the Irrigation and Nitrogen Management Plan Summary Report, which does need to be turned into the Coalition. Some subwatersheds do have an online tool to complete this report. In this report, you will report your actuals from the previous crop year, including actual nitrogen applied and yields. So for 2024 reporting, you will report on the 2023 crop year. Members in the valley floor are also required to complete a Groundwater Quality Management Practice Implementation Report, or MPIR. This is also available to be completed online. And members in a drainage with an active surface water quality management plan are required to complete a surface water MPIR. Farm evaluation plans are required every 5 years, with the next one due in 2025, And in areas with high vulnerability for sediment erosion, a sediment erosion control plan must be completed and certified once. And again, we'll discuss options for certification of the SECP in a few minutes. I would like to emphasize that because you are a member of the coalition, nitrogen use, yield, and other on-farm practices remain anonymous and cannot be traced back to a specific grower. We do understand that keeping track of your status and completing reporting on time can be cumbersome, but since you're a member of the coalition, we are here to assist you. We will notify you of everything that is needed for compliance and help you with meeting the requirements. I should mention, however, that the ultimate responsibility for completing all requirements is up to each individual grower. Apart from reporting, to remain a member in good standing, you must also pay your annual fees and dues on time, or you risk being dropped. Fees are determined by each subwatershed and depend on a variety of factors, such as size, number of monitoring sites, and the existence of any management plans. The fees also cover the state water quality fee, which is paid directly to the state. Lastly, members must also participate in at least one annual outreach event each year. By watching this video, you are meeting that requirement, and there are also other options as well. So if you're interested in those, please speak to your subwatershed or visit the link on this page. As you recall, the INMP worksheet and SECP require certification if you are in an area determined to be high risk for nitrogen or sediment erosion. One option to certify these reports is to become self-certified. The INMP Grower Self-Certification class is available to you online at any time. After taking the course and passing an open book online exam, growers become eligible to self-certify their INMP worksheet. If you use a CCA, they may also certify your worksheet as long as they have completed the CCA nitrogen certification course. The SECP self-certification training will be available only during the month of February. This training also requires passing an open book online exam. To access either of these trainings, please visit the link on the page. And if you would like to certify your reports in a different way, please reach out to your subwatershed for options. The data that you report is extremely useful for other coalition elements and for justification to alter the footprint and/or frequency of coalition and member reporting. The coalition sends reminders to members about reporting, but at the same time is mindful of using resources from diligent and responsible members to track down the not so diligent and not so responsible members. The coalition is required by the WDR to submit the names of members who did not complete their reports on time to the regional board. We have no choice but to comply with this requirement. At this point, the regional board, as the regulatory agency, will follow up with members to get those late reports. Now, although the coalition is not the regulatory agency, we will assist with completing reports. However, it should be mentioned that there may be late fees to account for the additional staff time required to help with late reports. The regional board performs what is called progressive enforcement. Displayed here is the enforcement pyramid used for late reporters. Between each level is a waiting period in which members are given an opportunity to respond. If a member does not respond, they move on up to the next level of enforcement. Now, the goal of these efforts is not to frighten landowners or collect fines, but it is to get landowners compliant and receive the data. That being said, there are consequences if you fail to respond and submit the late report. This is in the form of additional enforcement and fines up to $1,000 per day. Similar processes are used for members who fail to pay their dues and for non-enrolled landowners. Now, if you are ever a recipient of one of these types of letters, please respond immediately to avoid being escalated to the next level. However, if you are a member, the best way to avoid enforcement from the regional board is to complete your reporting on time and pay your dues. Another member requirement that began in 2022 is the On-Farm Active Drinking Water Well Monitoring Program. This requirement is mandated by the State Water Board for the entire Central Valley. Under this requirement, members must sample all wells on enrolled parcels that are actively used for drinking or cooking for nitrate plus nitrate as nitrogen. An ELAP certified lab must be used for the analysis. You must sample annually before January 1st until your results meet one of the following criteria listed on this page. For questions regarding this requirement, please contact the regional board whose contact information is here in yellow. As we come to the end of the presentation, it is worth a reminder that the Coalition is not the regulatory agency. We are here to help you comply with the state-mandated program, and we only provide information to the regional board that is required by the WDR. The State Water Board and Regional Board mandate and manage the program and are the regulatory agencies, and the Coalition is the go-between for you, the member, and the regulatory agency, the water boards. However, I'll say it again, the Coalition is not the regulator. We are here to help you comply with the state-mandated program. If you have any questions about anything that was presented in this video, here's a list of people that you can contact. Your local subwatershed representative and Bruce Houdesheldt, the Director of Water Quality at NCWA, are always more than happy to take your calls. And that concludes this video presentation. Thank you very much for watching.